Good morning, friends. The birthday of Charles Dickens is celebrated on the 7th day of February. Charles Dickens was an English novelist and social critic. He created some of the best-known fictional characters of the world. He is regarded as the greatest novelist of the Victorian era of the English literature. Charles Dickens was born in 1812 and died on 9 June 1870. Charles John Huffam Dickens was his full name. He was born in Portsmouth. John and Elizabeth Dickens were his parents. Dickens was married to Catherine Thomson Hogarth. Charles was a voracious reader. He had an excellent memory of people and events. The strenuous and often harsh working conditions made a lasting impression on Dickens and later influenced his fiction and essays. Charles Dickens was exceptionally popular for his works during his lifetime. Critics and scholars of the 20th century considered him a literary genius. His novels and short stories are widely read today as well. Dickens began his literary career as a journalist. Dickens made rapid progress both professionally and socially. He edited a weekly journal for 20 years. He wrote 15 novels, 5 novellas, hundreds of short stories and non-fiction articles. He lectured and performed readings extensively too. Besides, he was an untiring letter writer. He campaigned vigorously for the rights of children, for education, and for other social reforms. Within a few years, Dickens had become an international literary celebrity. His acumen as an authorpreneur was a greater item of reputation. Charles was famous for his humor, satire, and keen observation of character and society. His novels pioneered the serial publication of narrative fiction, which became the dominant Victorian mode for novel publication. Dickens was a philanthropist too. At the request of Angela Burdett Coutts, Dickens founded a home for the redemption of fallen women of the working class, named Urania Cartridge. About 100 women graduated from there between 1847 and 1859. Dickens honored the figure of Jesus Christ. He was regarded as a professing Christian. His son, Henry Fielding Dickens, described him as someone who possessed deep religious convictions. After death, Dickens was laid to rest in the Poets' Corner of Westminster Abbey. A printed epitaph circulated at the time of the funeral reads, "The most popular author of England, a sympathizer with the poor, the suffering and the oppressed. One of England's greatest writers is lost to the world." Perhaps the most important literary influence on him was derived from the fables of Arabian Nights. No other writer had such a profound influence on Dickens as William Shakespeare. The writing style of Dickens is marked by a profuse linguistic creativity. Satire, flourishing in his gift for caricature, is his forte. Claire Tomalin, biographer of Dickens, regards him as the greatest creator of character in English fiction after Shakespeare. Dickensian characters are amongst the most memorable in English literature, especially so because of their typically whimsical names. T.S. Eliot wrote that Dickens excelled in character, in the creation of characters of greater intensity than human beings. Walking the streets, particularly around London, formed an integral part of his writing life, stoking his creativity. Besides, the novels of Dickens were, among other things, works of social commentary. Virtue shows quite as well in rags and patches as she does in purple and fine linen. This was the belief that guided the destinies of the social writings of Dickens. Simon Callow states, from the moment Dickens started to write, he spoke for the people and the people loved him for it. He was a fierce critic of the poverty and social stratification of the Victorian society. Oliver Twist, the second novel of Dickens, shocked readers with its images of poverty and crime. It challenged middle-class polemics about criminals, making impossible any pretense to ignorance about what poverty entailed. At a time when Britain was the major economic and political power of the world, Dickens highlighted the life of the forgotten poor and disadvantaged within society. He campaigned on sanitation and the workhouse. But his fiction probably demonstrated its greatest prowess in changing public opinion in regard to class inequalities. Dickens depicted the exploitation and oppression of the poor and condemned the public officials and institutions that not only allowed such abuses to exist, but flourished as a result. The most strident indictment was in his novel Hard Times, as regards the condition of the industrial working class. Through sarcasm and satire, he condemned the factory owners, terming the marginalized social stratum hands instead of people. Karl Marx asserted that Dickens issued to the world more political and social truths than have been uttered by all the professional politicians, publicists and moralists put together. George Bernard Shaw even remarked that Great Expectations was more seditious than Marx's Capital. Dickens had an ability to create compelling storylines and unforgettable characters. He was the most popular novelist of his time and remains one of the best known and most read of English authors. His works have never gone out of print and have been adapted continually for the screen since the invention of cinema, with at least 200 motion pictures and TV adaptations based on the works of Dickens documented. Dickens conducted reading tours profusely. Edgar Johnson, biographer of Dickens, wrote, "It was always more than a reading. It was an extraordinary exhibition of acting that seized upon its auditors with a mesmeric possession." Museums and festivals celebrating the life and works of Dickens exist in many places, like Charles Dickens Museum, London, and Charles Dickens Birthplace Museum, Portsmouth. Even against his will, life-size statues of Dickens were erected in several countries as well. A Christmas Carol is most probably his best-known story, with frequent new adaptations. "Merry Christmas" is a prominent phrase from the tale, popularized following the appearance of the story. To celebrate the 200th anniversary of the birth of Charles Dickens in 2012, the Museum of London held the UK's first major exhibition on the author in 40 years. In 2002, Dickens was number 41 in the BBC's poll of the 100 Greatest Britons. Dickens and his publications have appeared on a number of postage stamps in various countries. Actors have portrayed Dickens on screen. American literary critic Harold Bloom placed Dickens among the greatest Western writers of all time. A few of the landmark works of Charles Dickens are A Christmas Carol, Oliver Twist, David Copperfield, The Pickwick Papers, The Old Curiosity Shop, The Battle of Life, The Haunted Man, Bleak House, Hard Times, A Tale of Two Cities, Great Expectations, Our Mutual Friend, and Bleak House. On the occasion of Charles Dickens' birthday 2024, on behalf of Institute of Harmony and Peace Studies, New Delhi, I wish to make an appeal to students of English literature in India and world over, and all the citizens of the world society. Let us take profuse inspiration from Charles Dickens for his creative, powerful, and effective writing, especially as a critic of social ethics, as well as a voice of the oppressed ones of our society. Hail the great writer Charles Dickens. Thank you.